What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. I forgot what I was saying there for a sec. What are we doing again? Why are we here? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We are getting tactical today. Not too many exciting things to talk about today. We did most of that yesterday when we talked about new codex results. But what I wanted to do today is go through our top events from the weekend. We did have some funny results to talk about. Randomly, like Tyranids are kind of all over the place, so we can get our Tyranid fix in. We also have some good results from things like Thousand Suns, which is nice for them, I guess. It's been a little while since we've seen them do well. Adeptus Sororitas also kind of doing well. Internet problems actually right now. It keeps reloading all my internet. I don't know what's going on. That's really annoying, actually. Wait, what is happening? But anyway, that is what we're gonna be doing. So I hope you are ready for that. New Thousand Suns Combat Patrol. Yeah, I guess we can talk about that momentarily here. If we want to talk about new stuff. Holy shit. What? What has happened to my Chrome? My Chrome is like having an absolute conniption right now. I'm sorry, chat. It just crashed for a moment. It was really weird. New night stuff has been dropped. We got that new good Thousand Suns goodness. Unfortunately, not too many new things. So I think literally just the Sectar robots is the only thing that's been showcased right now. But which I guess is unfortunate. However, from what I've heard, a lot of the rumors are like becoming more sort of corroborated by more sources, and a lot of people are saying that this codex looks pretty neat. So I'm kind of excited for that. I hope that they make the Kabbalistic Ritual mechanic interesting. I think a jury's out on Magnus right now, although with the current trend of Primarchs, I don't know if I would be too optimistic about seeing Magnus in competitive play anytime soon. But I don't know. It seems like good stuff. I'm excited for these guys to sort of come back in vogue for sure. We also we got that new Chaos Knight guy. There's a new Chaos Knight. The Night Ruinator. He's got a big flamer and a big crunchy thing, which is cool, I guess. And 2 Havoc launchers on his sub weapons, on his shoulder mounts, which is kind of cool. So anyway, literally no information whatsoever about the new Chaos Knight stuff, as far as I know. Obviously, we had some rumors about the Knight stuff. We'll see if that ends up panning out. But Chaos Knight stuff, who knows, man? Hopefully the Abominant ends up like making a comeback, because that guy is he's unplayable trash right now, which is super sad. But the new guy looks sweet, I guess. This weapon, I don't know, the big rock grinder weapon. It's cool because like knights are originally like they were like construction robots, right? And then they got, over thousands of years, people forgot how to use them to build buildings, and everyone just used them to beat each other. So like it makes sense that they would have like a mining arm, but it doesn't seem like it would be the most effective thing in a fight. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing with that, but it is what it is. Anyway, that's what's going on. Also, more flamer weapons on Titanic chassis, which you can't Overwatch with that, which is not that exciting. I wonder if it's the same profile as the flame cannon off of the Valiant. I guess it can't be, right? Because the Valiant flamethrower profile has 3 like things, right? 3 projectors. Yeah, it's a triple barrel flamer. Whereas this thing is a single barrel flamer. It kind of looks like one of those, which would speak to me that it's like maybe either 1 damage or the Valiant one. How many shots does a Valiant get? It's been so long since I played against a fucking Valiant, dude. The Valiant one is shooting 3d6 812 damage. So I wonder if it's 1d6 812 damage. That would be bad. There's no way. There's no way it's that bad. It's probably 2d6. It's the same profile, I imagine, or something. Because it does look like exactly 1/3 of that gun. It looks very starkly like what that is. It rivals the Valiant's Flamer. Interesting. Maybe it's like a single bigger thing, right? So maybe it's more direct, but more damage or something. I don't know. But you have to. The knights are big. Knights are in a weird spot because they have to compete with each other over like inclusion, where like you're gonna take this guy, this drill guy with a flamer, so he's probably like this close range dude. He can't Overwatch probably, unless that's a data sheet ability or something, and he has to compete with like a rampager who's just a big melee dude. And it gets tough, I think. I don't know how you balance all of those individual profiles because you're probably only including 1 or 2 in your army. So if one of them is superior, the other ones don't need to exist, which is very, very difficult from a balance standpoint. I understand that this is probably the easiest thing for Games Workshop to release for this faction because all they have to do is like add another sprue to the box, but I wish they would do something different. I don't know. Like open the faction up from just being able to play basically 3 units, right? Big Knight, Questorus Knight, War Dog. Those are the 3 things. And at any point, almost certainly one of those things is trash, and it's usually the Big Knight. And we play one of these dudes and some War Dogs at best, and that's where we're at. Let's give us a medium guy or a little baby Knight or something. I don't know. We go with Big Knights and Bondsmen that work like Morty's Aura, where it's like a reactive effect that's once per turn. I could see that. That'd be neat. Yeah, I need a melee Big Knight. Right. It's like there's so many options for a melee Big Knight. If this is another melee Big Knight or close range Big Knight, you're like, why do I need this? At least with the Knight Defender, Imperial Knight's trying to do something different with like a defensive aura. But this guy's just like another guy. I don't know. Not that excited about the thing. Maybe the Havoc Launcher pods are available for other chassis, though. That'd be neat. Knight-specific infantry, support pieces. Yeah, like, where's their mechanics at, you know? A little tech extensions here, guy. You can fix them. It'd be cool to do, like, a really cheap, like, Armiger or War Dog who's has the Warlock, like, the defensive profile, but is, like, you know, super inexpensive, but doesn't really have good guns, like a, you know, top-mounted Melta or something, like a shitty melee attack, but is like an entirely support piece. Like that's kind of unexplored territory. Yeah, I don't know. Just do something different with the faction. I would like that. But this feels like, for Knights and for Thousand Suns, it feels like kind of an interim release, right? Where they'll probably get bigger content drops in the future, but right now they're just getting little stuff, which is okay. Victor Warsuit War Dog, T99 Wound Scout. That'd be neat. It'd be kind of cool. I wonder how small you can get and still be like a knight. Like, what if the knights? What if they released Paragon Warsuits, but for knights? You know, I think that would be certainly something interesting. Like a big exosuit. It's not a full knight, but it's like a guy in a battle suit kind of thing. I think that'd be kind of cool. That's a way they could do infantry, but not really like violate the theme, violate the fantasy of the faction. If it's like this big industrial thing, like Ripley's loader, like big loader suit, but they've retrofitted it for combat and they put guns on it or something. Yeah, just call them squires. Thematically appropriate, chat. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Should we talk about some events, chat? Probably not going to dive super deep into it, but we did have some good results across the line here. And speaking of Imperial Knights, so at Münsterland, Fred Otto went a 4-1 with Imperial Knights, 220 O's by the way, on the old record. Running single Atropos, 6 Helverin, 4 Warglaive. It's funny, I played a Night Player a couple weeks ago, and he was like kind of talking shit about the Helverin. But man, when you put all the buffs together on those guys, they go kind of insane. And then this one's running the Immolator like Wombo. So we're able to hyper buff that auto cannon, and we can get a lot of range damage in, because the Armiger Warglaives are like super inconsistent, which is their real problem. Just really low volume, even in melee. I wish that they're like, if I had a hope for the Codex, it would be that Armiger Warglaives potential ranged output went down. Like the thermal spear has so much potential damage that the rest of the chassis suffers for it. And especially once you include floating rerolls, it gets kind of crazy. So their melee profile has to be like really bad. But I want them to be good in melee. But they're just so bad in melee, it's insane. You're spending 140 points on this big thing, and he's like strength 10 for like 3 damage, 4 attacks or whatever. Like wild. But the Helverin obviously can get around that by just having a high volume of attacks, which is great. Seems good. That's a proper list this time. Yeah. I was told, I don't know if we talked about it. I was told for that last event, they were using a different system, probably New Recruit, and it failed. And so everyone had to make an entry for Best Coast pairings really quickly. So everyone was just like, I don't know, I'm playing unlist. Here's my list. So there's like the player who XO'd with like Tyranids is like, bugs. There's bugs in my list. Oh, okay, cool, man. Yeah, which made me laugh. That's very funny. Even though I'll still give everyone shade for not putting a correct list in. Ooh, my throat is absolutely shot today. You can probably tell. I don't know what happened yesterday. Yesterday at I think so. I streamed Monday Mayhem, and we had a great show. I had a super fun time getting World Eaters rules wrong, and between that and then we streamed a finals game. Absolutely destroyed my throat, and absolutely just drained me. I fell asleep literally after that at like 5 p.m. I passed out. It was crazy. I got some work done late in the evening after I woke up again, but a super duper shot my throat. I don't know what this weird cold is, but it's hitting basically every part of my body at least one time. It's going all the way through. So the other thing that we want to talk about, we have some Tyranid results. Both this event. Oh no, I closed my other window. What the fuck is wrong with me? The Dawn of Var nope, that was what we were looking at. Wait, what are we looking at? Yeah, that's what we're looking at. All right, I closed the Münsterland page entirely. No, wait. Holy crap. Chat, what am I doing? I had an event open, and I closed it by accident. And it had the top 2 placements were a Tyranid draw. Or in top 3, 2 of the top 3 were a Tyranid draw. And now I have to, okay, it was the SSG Miniature Metropolis, which is the other kind of major level event this weekend. So we have a lot of Tyranids to talk about. That's kind of doing stuff, which I think is pretty sweet. Also, another X1 Tyranids there. So it was the weekend of Tyranids this week, which is kind of funny. So this one from Dawn of War is 4-1. Pretty solid scores. Nothing super exciting. Lasse Icons. Lasse. I don't know. Icons running Crusher Stampede. It's kind of a funny looking Crusher Stampede because it does have a bunch of battle line in it. I do feel like that's something that Crusher Stampede often misses, and it ends up kind of falling down because it doesn't have the like unit count volume to go do a bunch of actions and stuff. But this one's running double Hormagaunts Gargoyles, and Hormagaunts obviously are a great disruption piece, so they can keep you off primary real easily. Taking a Biovore, double Lictor, Pyrovore, Ripper Swarm, double Exocrine, Norn Emissary, triple Tyrannofex, which is cool. Only the one Norn, and then 5 Gunbugs, Tyrannofexes, all Rupture Cannons, Exocrines. So we're really kind of like leaning on those infantry to sort of keep stuff off of the Gunbugs. But from there, obviously they can just shoot the universe to death, so that's probably fine. We have a Pyrovore even in there to strip cover. Unfortunately, no Hive Tyrant, so we don't have Assault in any of these things. So just feel like a little bit of a miss. But Swarm Lord is in there to, I guess, act as a little bit of a stronger melee counterpunch. You don't necessarily need the Hive Tyrant's like free strats cut as much in Crusher Stampede because it really doesn't have that many good strats. Unfortunately for the Tyranid army. But you could be like overwatching kind of frivolously, I guess, if you had the regular Hive Tyrant. Plus the Assault would be nice. But obviously the Swarm Lord hits way harder, so giving him like hit rerolls is huge because then he can reroll hits and wounds, which is pretty nifty. But then if we move over to this event, 2 Tyranid players drew in the final round. 4-0 paired with each other, and they both drew, which is very funny. The Swarm, they just shook hands. Is the headcanon, right? They're just like, hey guys, we're not gonna fight each other. We're on the same team here. It's fine. Jacob Holstrom running Adaptive Biology Hive Tyrant. This is an invasion fleet. A 20 mana Hormagaunts, so we have access to the regen strat, so we can do like add more models back to the unit to steal objectives away. Triple Exocrine Biovore, double Lictor, triple Maliceptor, and double Norn Emissary. So there, besides that, 2 at Lictors and a Biovore for utility stuff, and then literally all bugs. This is very like Larry Oliver build, I think. I think this is probably like the future of Tyranids. These kind of lists, I think, have been doing very well in the past. They very like the infantry light, just spam the gun guys. Because we saw the same thing do well. Both finals games at like Richmond Open last week were the same. A similar build, right? Just like an invasion fleet or a Crusher with just a million big bugs in it. In that case, we had a single Tyrannofex in here in addition to the 2 Norns. I think cut down like 2 Maliceptors for that and 1 Hormagaunt squad, 1 10-man instead of a 20. But otherwise, like very similar idea for the list. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I think like you need ways to punch up in Tyranids, and the most efficient way they have to do that is the big bugs. So that's what they got going on. The future is in 18 zone throps. If only, man. If only zone throps were like a reasonable value for that. Unfortunately, the cost per model is still relatively high. But Kale Abrahamson went also 401 with another invasion fleet. Little different one this time. Only 1 Norn Emissary, triple Maliceptor, triple Exocrine. 3 Raveners, 2 Lictors, Gene Stealer unit. We do have a Broodlord, Adaptive Biology, Hive Tyrant. So it's a lot more early game push to take table space at the Broodlord unit. But it doesn't have the same level of sustain that the other list does because it trades that brick for. Oh, excuse me. Almost exactly for a Norn Emissary. Another Norn Emissary, I should say. But this triple Exocrine, triple Maliceptor is like, I guess the through line in both lists. So just like a ton of 3 damage shooting. I found that like, it's a little awkward because the shooting tends to be kind of like mutually exclusive because everything has blast. So it's hard to be able to like You know, you get the Norn Emissary engaged and it tanks a bunch of stuff, and then it has to like awkwardly fall back and step over people because you can't shoot at them unless the Norn Emissary is not there. So I don't know. And they also can't like shoot into each other's, like they can't shoot into melee with themselves, so they have to, they're engaging infantry, like they're just sort of like attacking. It gets a little bit awkward. It's the downside of the faction having like mass blast is all their really powerful offensive output, but it is what it is. I wonder how the matchup would have been different if there was a Tyranofex on one player side. Because the Tyranofex is just like so lethal into other Tyranid monsters. Obviously, the Norn and the Maliceptors can blanket maybe with their invulnerable save, but it comes down to like it's a big question of whether they roll it, obviously. But then it just like probably one shots Exocrines, and then isn't really worried about return fire shooting very much. So that might be like an interesting mirror breaker if that ends up being a really important piece. Played Tyranids for 20 years and they still died when Psychic died. The Tyranids died? Like the whole faction? Everything's dead? You can't play them anymore? Another Tyranid over here. More Invasion Fleet. This is a similar list. So Hugo Nassar running Broodlord, Hive Tyrant, Adaptive Biology. It's an Invasion Fleet. Incredible. This is double Hormagaunts, double Lictor. This one does have the one Tyranofex, but it didn't quite get as far. But it looks very much like the last list we looked at. The single Norn Emissary drops one Maliceptor and some utility, I guess, to get the one Tyranofex in there, which definitely seems better into the high armor save stuff. You put a Land Raider in front of a bunch of Exocrines, and I think they kind of like cry a little bit. Maybe the Broodlord can get some work done, but it's a little bit awkward. You're just like hoping for lethal hits, and if it's a Redeemer, then they just get cooked on the way in. So tough to do. Tyranid's currently worse than Mr. Freeze's ice puns. I mean, they're doing okay this weekend is kind of the idea, so I don't know. We'll see how things end out for old Tyranids. I'm perfectly happy to admit that. Like, I think Tyranids are playable. I think that you have to be a particular kind of person. You basically have to be an accountant to be the person who wants to play Tyranids. Because the whole thing is that you just like stat check people and score, but which is like I don't know, like about as far from interesting as I can find a faction. So I have like absolutely no interest in playing Tyranids. It sounds like the most boring thing in the world to me, but I don't know. Also at this event, we also saw some other interesting results. Space Wolves top 8. We have over Hugo, our friend Hugo got great scores, but got zeroed in one game. I actually wonder what that was. Yeah. So Sebastian Larson won the event, but also this faction is so annoying for Tyranids to deal with, man. They just don't have a way to do it. This matchup used to be so much fun because like War Dogs were so good in 9th edition. War Dogs were so good at keeping you off balance on primary, but Tyranids were so fucking good at killing them. It's like nuts. So you'd just be like smashing these robots' heads together, but then they would be like jumping on your objectives, and you'd be like, "No, stop it, no!" And then your Hive Tyrant would be like trying to pull double duty, but you could easily kill like 4 War Dogs in a turn, or like spike them out on shooting or whatever. It was a very different matchup. Now they struggle to kill 2, I think. It's just the T10 into like everything being strength 9 is really not that fun. It's also mass demon breath spears too, doesn't help as well. Carnivores and brigands are just like so well statted to kill Tyranid stuff. It's just like a nightmare. And Tyranids are playing basically the same game plan, but their OC is 3 lower than yours. They don't have baked in vulnerable saves. All their weapon strength is low and low AP. Oh boy. Faction has the life sucked out of it by Dementor. Yeah, to some extent you can say that that's true of a lot of 10th edition, right? Like the push to make the game more simplified is definitely kind of smooth things over. I will, like, you know, in previous editions I very rarely faction hopped, right? I'd play like 1 or 2 armies and do that throughout the edition. But man, 10th edition, like each 10th edition armies don't like hold my interest very long, which I guess is, you know, is unfortunate. I find it much easier to learn new armies because you don't literally have to relearn like an encyclopedia worth of like unique bespoke mechanics. But I do think that, I don't know, it's less interesting than 9th edition was for sure. I feel like all of this has all been tread before. I don't know if we're breaking any new ground talking about the simplification of 40k right now. You talk about Space Wolves a little bit while we're here in the top 8. Less interesting, but more balanced. Yeah, that is true. Like the balance is interesting, and I think it makes decision making more interesting. I do think that there are more ways for variance to creep in, which I don't love. It feels more random than 9th edition did, but I don't know. So much flavor in army building. I think it was good for match play too, because like an interesting thing about that 9th edition did, and I always go back to, I can't remember who the username was, and I'm sure maybe somebody can remind me. We played in a finals game, and I bet I could find this game actually. And like the cool thing about 9th edition codexes is that they were so fucking dense that there was stuff in there that no one really explored, and so your capacity to, we found it. It was, player's name was Flesh's Weakness. This is one of my like favorite games that we streamed in 9th edition. Pull it up here. And the codex, like each codex was so dense that there were these things you could do that no one expected. And so this was a game, it ended up not being like, it ended up being kind of a blowout. I think it was Matt Damon, Jonathan B, who was like insane Aelor player in 9th edition. But like this player had this combo on, I forget what the combo was. It was like you took a Master of Executions and you took a pistol, a relic pistol, and a warlord trait. And it would give him like a huge like sustained effect. It allowed him to flip a dice, and it was bespoke to Night Lords, which was a super non-meta subfaction, right? It was like insanely non-meta. But then this little fucking thing comes out of nowhere and like absolutely surprises you, just shocks you with like how much damage it does, and like dumpstered a unit by himself. And we were like, what is this? How come no one has played this before? And it's because like there's so many little things that you could faction specialize into a particular sub faction and still find like really interesting and unique stuff to do. That was really cool. That was neat. And that was one of my favorite examples of it, was this game where we were like going through the lists and like, oh, and that's Night Lords. It's interesting. I wonder what they're doing here. And then like this little fucking character jumps out and then like kills an entire unit by himself. And we're just like, whoa, what? You can do that? You're like, yeah, but nobody knows about it because it's Night Lords and nobody plays them. And there was like a lot of ways to do that. Custom sub-factions did that too. I had great fun playing Tyranids and building like weird combos out of custom sub-factions. So I think like in terms of competitive play, there was like interesting stuff that you could be doing for sure. I don't know. Like Speedwalk grid again? Yeah. Would have been better if the factions didn't release with an alpha of their army rules. A lot of people have, since a lot of armies were so weak. I think that was just a problem with index balancing. I mean, honestly, what they should have done, and they'll never do this, and like we talk about it all the time. What they needed to do is take 9th edition, end game 9th edition, and run it for a year, and then like release balance updates occasionally, but use that time to lock in balance for index 10th edition. Because the problem with 10th edition, so many people got turned off because the balance was fucking nuts. You released 10th edition Eldar alongside release Votann, where like everything got worse and didn't get any, like literally nothing got buffs. Whereas Eldar can like, hey, I'm gonna do 22 mortal wounds to you with devastating with a Wraith Knight. Oh, okay, cool, man. Or like Death Guard, release Death Guard, where like you get sticky objectives. Well, what else do we get? That's it. That's all you get. You got OBSEC on your army. Oh, okay. So I just suck. And got easier to kill, lower damage output. Like everything went down from 9th edition. They needed another 6 months of balance passes because a lot of that stuff was very clearly not play tested whatsoever. And like very obviously so, right? And it was like the same anytime that the Games Workshop does one of these big content drops. Like Gratzos was the same thing, right? A bunch of the, like, it was very clear that a bunch of the Gratzos attachments had never been play tested whatsoever. And they were conceptualized and maybe toned down for the sake of balance in case, but they were never played. And like you got to give yourself another month, and you got to put that stuff on the table. You know, then you don't have like a combination of things like Starshatter Arsenal on one hand, and then Champions of Fenris on the other hand. And you're like, one of these things is not like the others, you know. And then you get to figure that out. So every time like Games Workshop pushes the crunch on their development team, that shit happens. And if they, and 9th edition, Endgame 9th edition was really good. And if they'd run it for a year, like we would have gotten bored of it. But then they would have released 10th edition and it would have been balanced. It would have been interesting and everyone would have been happy with it. But they need to sell the new edition to fucking make a bunch of money every 3 years. So it is what it is. Yeah. End of 9th was phenomenally interesting for sure. The 9th edition World Eaters Codex was like one of the coolest codexes that Games Workshop's ever released. It was like on point thematically. It was a little low on playables, but the faction's very small, so that's not surprising. But like the entire thing was about, it was like the theme was on point, the way it played was on point. It scored for like losing models. So it played this like melee only game plan that was very, very one dimensional, but it ended up being this like interesting race between whether you can kill them faster than they can score, which is always fun. So 4-year cycle should be the new norm. Yeah, I agree for sure. I honestly I'm against edition cycling. I think outside of like extreme situations where mechanically you need to. I'm also like, I'm not a business person. I'm actively bad at making money. Please support me on Patreon and join my YouTube channel membership. But you know, I'm like more of like a game auteur, I guess. And I was like, well, if there's no mechanical reason that we need a new edition, we should never release one. Is my ethos on things. But obviously, in order for a game to be successful to the point where you do have these conversations about it, it does need to make money to some extent. So there's like a chicken and the egg sort of problem there. Damn to each of the chat. Nice to see you, my guy. At least 1 year of all the codexes released, not the shit show of having a codex for 3 months. Yeah, I agree. It sucks because it's like, I don't know. Like, I genuinely wonder if the people writing codexes like, there's this like really this is it, you know, when you come up with a game mechanic that's really cool, and we get it too on our end, right? When we see a game mechanic and we're like, oh, neat, that's like cool, it works mechanically, and it's so thematic that it's like mwah, chef's kiss. And occasionally we get that and we're like, whoa, the theme is on point. Like I liked Drukhari pain tokens, right? Because the like Drukhari pain tokens was like, all right, it thematically, Drukhari get empowered when people are in pain. Like they literally is how they work, like biologically. They like siphon off the psychic energy, whatever the lore justification is, I forget. But that's what they do, right? And then But then on the table, you're incentivized to pick on the weaker units first in order to like generate yourself resources to then have enough power to kill the bigger stuff. And I was like, that is so on point. It's like, it works thematically. It was very clean mechanically on the table, and it makes you play in a way that is in line with the lore of the game. That's so rad. And then like you get excited about that, and it happens on the other side of the table where you're like, if you're a game designer and you come up with this mechanic and you play on the table and you're like, wow, this worked perfectly. This is so sick. It's so invigorating. But I genuinely wonder if there is like any joy like working for this company, because you construct this game mechanic and you're like, great, this is awesome, we've locked it in, it's perfect, print it, and then you're like, well, in 6 months we'll have to rewrite it, not because the game mechanic is bad, but because corporate told us to. And like, I cannot imagine that is that's fun. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot imagine that's something that someone gets hyper invested in, and I imagine that the burnout in that studio is crazy. For that reason. 11th will just be detachments again, so it's likely. I mean, we're still probably a year or more out, so who knows? But 11th edition will likely use the same mechanics that we do now. They don't usually want to re-release all the army mechanics every edition. So usually like they'll carry over mechanics from the last edition, at least for one. See how it goes. Hope Drukhari build this edition will be flavorful, but not as strong as 9th edition. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the characters in Drukhari were really cool. The Razor's Edge combo is like a little silly, but almost clearly unintended. All right, chat. Should we talk about Space Wolves for a little bit here? That's a good aside. A good aside between talking about Tyranids and talking about a different faction. No. No Space Wolves. Only 10th edition. Only 11th edition prognostication. New Chaos Knight and Pro Knight units are nothing more than upgrade sprues. That you just going this direction concerning Death Company Dreadnought. Will they do the same with Space Wolves? I think so. I think I would imagine that the scuttlebutt currently is that Bjorn gets a kit. And I imagine that ends up being an upgrade sprue to a like a Redemptor Dreadnought. Sure. We'll see. There's also scuttlebutt that Thunderwolf Cavalry get a new kit, which I don't know. I side eye it a little bit, but it could certainly be the case. It would be interesting for Space Wolves to be like a full range re-release. This edition, because I don't think they necessarily need it. Like primarisizing all their infantry and giving them new characters or models or whatever is like, that makes sense. But it is kind of interesting that they would basically re-release all of their kits. Anyway, Sebastian Anderson was running Stormlight Task Force. Kind of I guess like sort of standard stuff. Harold Deathwolf, Combi Lieutenant, Logan on Storm Rider, triple battle leaders, Hunter Instinct, Thunderwolf Lord. So we have all of the guys. Now, is Harold the weird dude who doesn't double attach, or is it Canis Wolfborn? It's definitely not Harold Deathwolf. He definitely does double attach. It must be Canis, because Canis is like a weird loner guy. Hoping Murderfang gets a new model. A Brutalis Murderfang would be sweet for sure. Running with 2 scout squads. Looks like 15 Thunderwolf Cavalry, 2 of 6 and 1 of 3 to fill that out, alongside a bunch of Wolfen, a Calidus Assassin, and a Navigator. Now, riddle me this, chat. Where did Calidus Assassins go? they got pumped up. Their cause got pumped up a little bit. And now they're just not played anymore. I don't know where they went. It's so fascinating to me because there's basically every faction getting free strats. Means that
Ryan G donated $5 through Super Chat. According to a lot of COD devs, they're just happy to have job security since Terry's no lag in dev time. Also good as a resume checker / springboard.
Thank you with the for the super chat, Ryan. I guess that makes sense. Job security, and I from what I understand, Games Workshop's actually like kind of a nice company to work for. They do a lot of like incentives and like kickbacks to their staff. So it's always funny when we complain about GW, but like they have lots of like kind of skullduggerous business practices, but like as a company, they're like relatively upstanding. Whenever they like take fans to court for fan art or whatever, and that's like pretty cringe. But then they're like, they usually like give huge bonuses on good years and stuff, reward their team for successful quarters, which is, you know, always nice to hear about. Calidus vanished with free rules access. So let me show you this cool website, chat. It's called Wahapedia. It has, I don't know if you knew this, but it has all the rules on it. Look, it has all of them. They're all here. And you can look at them. And you can play 40k without having to buy codexes. Definitely vote with your hobby dollars, Chad. Don't buy codexes. It's not good. It's not a good business model, and nobody likes it. But what's interesting to me is that so many factions have or are getting free strat access. Calidus Assassins feel so strong right now. Because, like, the more that you use command points, the heavier Calidus Assassins hit you. Which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if a Calidus Assassin's in position and is going to double the cost of your Overwatch from 1 to 2 CP, you likely just don't do it. But a faction whose like identity is using lots of stratagems will typically plan to double down on strats onto single targets, which means that you get to like double whammy them in terms of taxing. So like, for example, when you're playing space Ultramarines, and oftentimes their game plan is to stack Armor of Contempt in Smokescreen or Armor of Contempt in a CP reroll or whatever, in order to keep stuff alive for longer. And the Calidus Assassin, like, taxing all that is like a huge pain point for them. So I'm curious as to why this model like just fell down so hard. It's also really hard to screen it up downs. It's like not bad at melee. 100 points is pretty steep for it, I guess, but it feels to me like we should see it played more often. Calidus makes Ultramarines only get 15 CP a game. Yeah, Ultramarines is the biggest one. I think the Calidus, if people are worried about Ultramarines in their metagame, I think the Calidus Assassin would help so much. Because like unironically burning Ultramarines of their CP, despite the fact that they get so many of them, it's like really painful because a big part of it is that part of the 500 points you spend on your characters is supposed to be that those characters will refund you over the course of the game in terms of their command points. If you lose that efficiency, it's actually like a huge loss for the army. You start to watch Ultramarine players go like, "Oh, I don't have enough CP to do this thing," and you're like, "Uh-oh, you're gonna die now." So you'll have to see it. This does feel like a list from like a year ago. This feels like a list from yesteryear for sure. That's very like 2024 pilled. This Face Wolves list. What do these two Astral Tarum tying with each other over here? A lot of faction mirror matches tying. It's interesting to see. I want to talk about Thousand Suns momentarily too, but probably the last time we'll talk about Thousand Suns until the new codex comes out. I'm psyched for that new codex, by the way. Talked about it a little bit, but I'm super excited for that to look good. The Thousand Suns new vibe is Calexis better counter or Librarian better? So it depends on what they end up doing. I would say that like trying to specifically tech for psychic mitigation is like really difficult. The Calexis Assassin is good if Thousand Suns are like literally all psychic. So if we see, for example, like combi bolters become psychic weapons, and like Prosperine Kopeshi becomes psychic weapons, and like all that extra stuff, then the Calexis Assassin is like a real nightmare. But because he's so squishy, just as a guy, right? He's just like a little man with stealth and an invuln save. If they can attack him with non-psychic weapons, he'll just die anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Like famously, like that's when you charge him with the Exalted Sorcerer and you go like, I'll use the Exalted Sorcerer's second weapon. Your opponent goes, excuse me, what? And he pulls out his non-psychic sword and kills them, and everyone forgets that he had that. Or if like, you know, Inferno Bolters or Warp Flamers, which are currently non-psychic weapons, if they retain non-psychic, you just shoot him with a regular gun and he'll die. So it's not really like that great of like counterplay, unless there is a rumor that a lot of that stuff becomes psychic, and in that case, he would be great. So it depends on what the Codex does, to be honest. Who wins, Bingus, Bongus, or Azrael? I don't know what that question is. So I'm going to say Azrael because I don't know what Bingus Bongus is. All right, let's see. So this is a Cult of Magic. Obviously, we're not playing Treaty Warp Hex Warp Thrall Band. That one sucks. Take an Exalted Disc Sorcerer, Lord of Forbidden Lore, Infernal Master with Arcane Vortex, 2 more Infernal Masters, Magnus the Red, Terminator Sorcerer with Crystal, some friendly Rubric Marines, 3 units of 10, a Zangor unit for the backline, a Rhino, oh, spicy, plus a big Scarab Cult Terminator unit, plus a Cultist. So a little bit of forward operation from the Cultists, which are nice. Rhino helps you against early game aggression. Awkward part is that when you jump into the Rhino, you aren't on the table, so you don't get Cabal points for the units inside the Rhino, which is a little bit weird. The other thing too is that, and I actually misplayed this in the past, and to anyone I misplayed this against, I apologize. I did it in a couple games. Magnus the Red gives Psychers +1 to hit and wound on their psychic weapons. If you go into a Rhino and you firing deck Infernal Masters or something out of the Rhino, they actually don't get the bonus. So where they are still like a pretty good little gunboat, so you can put 2 units of Rubric Marines inside a Rhino and shoot like Soul Reapers or the character guns out of the top of the Rhino. But important to note, they won't get most of your like synergies, right? They won't get the Rubric Marine bonus because they're not Rubric Marines when they're firing out of a Rhino. They won't get Magnus's bonus because they're not a Psyker. So there's like a bunch of stuff to keep in mind. So the Rhino does have some anti-synergy, but the big thing is that it lets you actually, like, it gives you a utility unit that's relatively resilient, and it lets you actually like survive for a moment on the table. Whereas normally you're just getting blown up. The other thing too is like there's a little bit of indirect fire, I guess, going around. Not a ton of it, but Thousand Suns are particularly susceptible to strong indirect if you have a lot. So if you have like Militarum artillery teams or something, it's like really kind of a nightmare because you're losing 20-point models every time you fail a save into them. And that like dramatically reduces the effectiveness of your guys. So having a Rhino to protect them on turn 1 is kind of a big deal. Six Anathema Psychotic Rhinos into 3++. Yeah, Anathema Psychotic Rhinos are a little different because like most of Thousand Suns' actual anti-tank is psychic. Like Magnus is psychic, the Infernal Masters are psychic, Arcane Vortex guy is psychic. So like the Psychotic Rhinos are legitimately difficult for that faction to interact with. Because they're not just like a toughness 4 dude with a 4+ save, right? So the Psychotic Rhinos are pose a particularly unique problem. If Thousand Suns do end up being meta, I do feel like they'll probably see some play. Sure. Is Bingus Bongus a must take? Yeah, let's say yes. I would say Bingus Bongus is a requirement for competitive play right now. For sure. 100%. GW reacted to the Saturnine leaks. Apparently it's all BS. Interesting. Interesting. That's wild. Yeah, you think Games Workshop... I'm surprised that Saturnine Terminators don't already exist in Horus Heresy. Like, they're such a classic. But I don't know. There's a Reddit thread talking about it. But that would be such a like high effort like shit post if that leak was a shit post. So what we're talking about, by the way, folks, maybe we should have talked about this earlier, but I don't do 30k stuff. I don't know anything about 30k, so it is what it is. Is a image got leaked recently of a boxed set. Let me see if I can find it. I'll find a set of the leaks. An image got leaked of a boxed set for 40k that somebody had stolen, I guess. They were like taking a picture out of the back of their car, like literally falling off the truck into their truck, and they were like selling it or something. And it had the OG Saturnine Terminators in it. It was a new box set called Saturnine. It was like Salamanders themed, and it had the OG Terminators in it. So let's see. Yeah, here we go. So here's the pictures. And like, that would be high effort as fuck, right? Like, you would have needed to have like modeled all this shit and then painted, like pro painted it or digitally painted it or something. And then also like mocked up an entire box set with it. Like, what? That would absolutely shocked me. There's like cover art. It's in the style. And if the official stance is that's not real, like, are you sure? Because it sure fucking looks real. That's wild. Trust me, bro. According to GW, Blessing of Corn also barely changed. Fucking fire, dude. You're so right. But like, I guess, I don't know, like scour the internet, scour Instagram and see if this is like somebody's custom army. Because it could be, right? Those could be 3D prints. I don't know. That some like, you know, pro dude with a Patreon did, or, you know, and it's like trying to be a goofy Gabby. But here's the other thing too, is that this is my favorite part of this. There's more in the car. This dude just like stole a case of these fucking things. Like, I want to know the story behind this. And then like, I am like, what are these boxes? Are they more Saturnine boxes? This dude literally like raid a shipping container somewhere and like try to take all this stuff. Like, I don't know. Ooh, like, no, they closed the window. What's wrong with me? But he has like a bunch of Tims like in here. So like maybe he's like stealing shoes too. Like, he's just a real silly goober. What if it's AI? No, AI wouldn't be able to do this. Because the text is legible. AI doesn't know how to do that. The models are the same miniature, like clearly the same miniature, but repositioned. Which AI would fuck up super hard. I would say that there's no way there's AI. We'd also like this stuff would be fucked. It would not be able to accurately recreate the Timberland logo or the Nike Air logo, like without fucking it. AI is so dumb. It would mess up somewhere and it would be really obvious. Guy living out of his car. Imagine just living on stolen Horus Heresy box sets and Tim's out of the back of your truck. Give this guy his $500, man. He needs it, dude. He needs it more than we do. He's living in this situation. Check out Chapter Master Valrak's video. I'm not gonna do a watch along on stream or anything. Y'all can watch it after we're done here, but I thought it was funny. Honestly, it's like probably one of those situations like the Dante leak from like back in the day where Dante just got like missent to somebody. Like I bet it's something similar like that. Like it's a new release that's being prepped in the warehouse and they just like accidentally dropped it somewhere, or and more likely an LGS got it early and this is like an LGS owner. Feels pretty likely to me that they got a case by accident. I don't know. The stance that it's not real feels like copium. This feels like one of those things where like when Dante dropped by accident and they're just like, here's a preview article, I guess. Like, fuck. Feels like something similar. A 40k shadow runs. We bring the game to you. Is that the slogan? Yeah, not the first time for sure. Starting to think the leaks are GW trying to build hype. The way Horus hearsay response feels very intentional and jokey. I don't know. Is that a website? I don't know. I'm so not in the Horus Heresy community. So the Horus Heresy community, by the way, and maybe we're getting a little spicy today, but whatever. I'm dying of plague or something, so I have very little to live for. But the Horus Heresy community feels a little bit like, oh yeah, it is a website. I love that. So I apocryphally when I was a kid, I was, I don't know, maybe 19 or something. It was a local game store I used to play at, and there was this one kid there. He was like, I don't know, 14 or something, and he would play and he didn't know how to pronounce heresy, so he would pronounce it hearsay, and I was like, it was so funny. It's like, oh, you can't do that. That's hearsay. It's like, what? What does that mean? Oh, you eventually figure it out. How come the photos are so bad? Because you like ran them through a weird filter, my guy. Wait, are these actually like, did they just post pictures of the sprues? Oh, wait, they just like confirmed it. Are these just the sprues? So it's not like a not confirmation. They just confirmed that it's there. Well, this discussion is not necessary, I guess. Are these in the pictures? Did I close my pictures like I'm a goober? I did. Why am I like this? So like if we look at the models, I guess it's hard to tell whether or not we can like correspond anything from there. Oh, it's the little stud is on the shoulder pad here. It's this thing. Right? Yeah. On his shoulder. Yeah, okay. So they responded So what you're saying, chat, is that instead of saying it was fake, they responded with an article, with like an official article with pictures of the sprues contained inside this box. That's a weird way of saying this is fake, chat. I don't know. I feel like that might be confirmation. But yeah, I don't know. So I don't follow horror's hearsay that much. Yeah, this is like the accessory sprue. That's like in the corner over here with the measuring sticks. I don't know what these parts are. I can't recognize them, but maybe they're in there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Seems neat. An 18-sided dice. I don't know what that is about. But I don't know. Yeah, I always get comments from people, and this is the case for Horus Heresy and for one-page rules. The one-page rules people and the Horus Heresy people feel to me like the same. It's like a Venn diagram that's a circle. Where they're always like, anytime something in 40k happens that's like kind of cringe or whatever, they're like, this is why I play only Horus Heresy. It's the best game ever. You should all play it. And it's so much better than 40k. And I'm like, it's not a very good way to convince people to play your game. If the only reason to play the game that you're evangelizing is that it's better than the worst part of another game, it just means it's like at best mid. So like, I don't know, like talk about what's cool about it. Talk about the cool things you can do that makes people want to play it. It's weird when people come in and be like, well, this is why Warhammer is so trash, and I and no one else should ever play Warhammer. They should always play Horus Heresy. It's much better. It's such a better game than the trash game that you play. And you're like, what are you doing here, my guy? You're not convincing anyone. So I don't know. It's like a little cringe. It's weird that it's a 7th edition rules set, so I don't know. Like, I don't have anything against people playing those games, but they actively disincentivize me from wanting to engage with the community when they like come into random comment sections, especially the ones that are like totally unrelated. They come into like a random comment section and are like, you are still playing 40k, you fucking cuck. You should be playing Horus Heresy. Okay, man. You go back to the retirement home, Grandpa. It's all right. And yeah, I don't know. And I think Horus Heresy, I think it happens a little bit less with, because I do think that there's a lot of overlap between people who like the two games. And recognizes they're two different ones. One Page Rules is the ones that really does that to me. But I do find that there are very similar interactions between like big Horus Heresy like evangelists and One Page Rules evangelists. And it's really annoying. That's all I have to say about it. I left somebody like a huge copy pasta on a comment they left on One Page Rules that kind of irked me. They left like a whole thing about how 40k was like the trashiest game ever, and Games Workshop had ruined it, and it was sucked, and everyone who played it was dumb. And everyone should play One Page Rules. And I left them like a 3-paragraph essay, but like, hey man, it's exactly the wrong way to convince anyone to join your community. Your community seems super elitist and hyper annoying. And every time I see a post from someone in the community, it's like that, you know? It's not talking about what's interesting or cool about the game. It's putting other games down to like elevate yours. Come on, man. That just ain't it, fam. And I get that a lot anyway. How all Horus Heresy players sound. I will say I was at what were we at? We were at a convention. It was a little convention. It wasn't even that big. But I was at a convention, we were showing Breachstorm stuff, and the Horus Heresy had a room. And we went to the Horus Heresy room, and this is what's cool about Horus Heresy. If you want me to sell Horus Heresy to you, I will fucking sell Horus Heresy to you. Because there's legitimately cool things about the game. I don't know if the community understands what's cool about their game, but, you know. And they had constructed, right, It was it was at Everwinter. It was at Everwinter this past year, and they were doing a narrative campaign. We went. You go into the room, and there are all of the tables for each individual game. They had built an entire battlefield that was like 10 or it was bigger. It was bigger. It was like 20 feet long, and it was basically a row of tables in one room. And they had constructed the entire battlefield and then compartmentalized it down into individual tables to play the individual games on. First of all, sick. You're basically contextualizing every game of Horus Heresy that you're playing. It's not a mega battle, but you are playing a component of a battle. That's rad. The other thing that they did was that they had constructed a hologram campaign board. They had used like an LCD screen with a mirror to build a hologram to make like a hex campaign board to show the troop movements over the campaign that we're playing. That's fucking sick, dude. What? Are you kidding me? That's amazing. Like, why aren't we talking about this? Like, that's super cool. And they have a rule set that's conducive to that kind of play. That's fucking awesome. Talk about that shit, dude. Suddenly, like, my interest is piqued. All the stuff about how, like, modern systems are bad and whatever is like that's not how you get people to approach the game. You can talk about how it's conducive to like thematic terrain placement, where you're trying to play like over these battlefields that are thematic to the lore of the game, versus playing like a series of boxes on the table. I understand that. I get it. I think that's interesting. Like, using the old AP system means that a lot of times you don't need necessarily cover, or you don't instantly die to shooting. So you try to, like, you can play in the open more. And so you can play these more thematic boards. Understandable, right? But that's not the way they approach the conversation. Oh, man. Everyone wants to play 40k with just humans. Yeah, it was always interesting to me that like they haven't added other stuff in, right, to Horus Heresy. And I understand that like that's not the point of the game, but it does feel like a miss to me that like there's no like demon crossover. It's like weird that demons in Horus Heresy are so much different than demons in 40k. I guess it doesn't. Like thematically, it makes a little bit of sense because they haven't been constructed to human preconceptions, which is like how they work in the warp, right? Whatever you think a demon looks like is what a demon's going to look like when it shows up. And so because they hadn't really like engaged with humanity until the 30,000s, they wouldn't really have had that notion, right? So I guess it makes sense. But like they could trace over like demon stuff into Horus Heresy. They could play more factions. They could add orcs in. Like, I don't know how much of orcs changed. You know what I mean? And like, or they like had half of the lead up to the Horus Heresy was just them fighting orcs anyway. That was all they did for a while. So like, you could probably play orcs in that format, and it would probably be fine. You could play Eldar. They fight Eldar in Horus Heresy all the time. They ally with Eldar. They have all sorts of weird conversations with Eldar. You could put craft worlds in there. Eldar haven't really changed, I don't think. They probably use the same shit. So I don't know. Demons are in Horus Heresy? Well, that like regular demons, like you can play a Bloodthirster or whatever. Because I know that they had like their blood fiends or whatever it was, which were like super cool. And honestly, the demon models look much cooler, but they're not working off of like 40 years of kind of legacy designs. It was like a word bearers thing. Oh, well, the website's broken, so that's good. Sick. Thanks, Horus Heresy. Yeah, I don't know how I would. Oh, Demons of the Ruin Storm. Well, this is going swimmingly. Oh, good stuff. My exposure to Horus Heresy, chat. Womp. Well, there you go. Spencer, I walked through the narrative section. I thought it was neat. I think I tried to say hi to you, but I don't know. I think you were busy when we were walking through. Weaver had an OPR player keep throwing weird comments like that towards the 40k game while he was playing his. Yeah, like, come on, man. Like, one page rules is probably almost certainly the worst for it. Because one page rules is like, I don't know. It's like, it's like exclusively a predatory, like a predatory like business model almost. Like the only reason one page rules exist is to siphon players away from other games. Like, one page rules doesn't have any merits of its own. It is exclusively there to like take players away from different games, right? You know, I have like I've kind of like a little bit of like a similar concept with like Trench Crusade, but I don't think it's even nearly the same thing, because Trench Crusade is like very clearly like an artistic reimagining of like what 40k could be. You know what I mean? Like, it's so 40k pilled, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And I think that the reason that it's so big is that a lot of people who like the 40k aesthetic gravitated over to like 40k, but like amped up. And so part of it is like they want to take the gothic, like sort of grimdark horror and like make it crazy. And I understand that. So part of it is like it's kind of meant to take the people who like the darkest parts of 40k, the John Blanches, the Blanchitsu of 40k, and like create an entire game around that. And that's understandable. But Trench Crusade also does a lot of really interesting and unique stuff. And I think that's rad. And I wish them the best of luck for that, which I guess I don't need to do because they're fucking enormous out of nowhere. Like OPR though, is like, it's just 40k, man. But they're like, well, we don't like your 40k. We like our 40k. And you're like, all right, dude, calm down, my guy. So it's like weird that it. So I think like that's its only like selling point, and that's probably why it's like so difficult to have that conversation. Like, I've never shown up to a game where somebody was playing OPR, and I would be like, wow, like we just talked about with Horus Heresy, where Horus Heresy is like, does all this cool narrative shit and does all this cool campaign and ongoing play stuff. You show up to an OPR game and you're like, wow, that looks like a different game. like, what's the USP? Oh, there isn't one. Okay, cool, man. I don't know. Trench Crusade is for real, just 40k, but lit darker. It is. It so is. Yeah, and that's why, I mean, that's why it's so big, right? It's like riding on the coattails. But from what I understand, and I haven't played Trench Crusade, I've done a little bit of research on it. But from what I understand, like obviously, it was originally like an artist that started the project who put a lot of time into it. Like, the world building's really deep, and the mechanically it's really interesting. There's a mechanic where you can use damage applied to people as a resource, which is like really cool. And that's just like a generic mechanic to the game. So like, you are able to power up when people are taking damage, which is like a little Marvel Crisis Protocol style. But I think that's really cool. That's a unique system. Apparently, it's like designed explicitly for League play, which is like I think a unique place as well. So like, Trench Crusade, I think took the like, we're gonna go darker than 40k. Like, 40k is too sanitized now. We're gonna like I don't know, clone Jesus and like, or something, and also I don't know, there's like something, there's some weird like kingdom death pregnancy monsters in there probably, but then also like take that and do interesting mechanical stuff with it, and I appreciate that. You know what, I think that's fine. They played their OPR game for 30 minutes, and then we're like, we both have control the same number of objectives at the end of the game against the draw. Yeah, that's real classic, like 5th edition 40k, which is when OPR started, right? It's like, it's a game design that's like locked into 2010 or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's not for me, chats. It's not for me. I understand like wanting wanting to play a miniature game system with your miniatures that isn't locked into 40k is like toxic business practice. I get that. But I also think that the way to promote it is not to go to 40k players and say, your game sucks, this game's better, you should play it. So, like, I don't know. At least it's better than I played a I played a War Machine game one time, kind of apocryphally, at a store. This is like when I had gotten out of 40k and I wasn't really that interested in it. And it was in 6th edition, I think, and it used those rules where it's like end of game objective scoring. And we had played a War Machine game, re-racked, and played a second game. And then the table next to us, just playing 40k, finished their game and said, "Wow, great game. I guess it's a draw." And we were both like, "Really?" That's like 5 hours. But I think that was like definitely the way that the scenarios worked back then. It was really bad. Have I ever tried competitive dodgeball? For sure. Not shitting on 9th age. Has anyone else noticed that as an observer, it feels like 2 people lining up models and then talking for 3 hours without moving anything and the game just ends? Is that 9th age or Old World? So I have a friend who plays Old World. He gives me updates. He tells me about his Old World games. And it sounds, at least based on someone who's extremely enfranchised into the game, like Old World games are really interesting and like push-pulley, like a tug-of-war. And I think they introduce a lot of mechanics to like reinvent the rank and flank formula, which I think is really cool, like where units will literally move each other by attacking. I think that's really interesting, and that's definitely not something that's been done enough, I think, in that format. It's not a game I'm interested in. My rank and flank days are over. Like, I just can't be bothered anymore. And the rules like syntax is like really, really like 2010, early 2000s Games Workshop pilled, which I'm not really interested in diving into. Hellstorm Wargaming did a couple deep dives on, I think, that system when it first came out, and like the weird bizarre shit that existed in it when it first came out. I watched a bunch of Mikey's videos on that, which was very funny. 9th age specifically, I don't know a single thing about 9th age besides that it's 8th edition 2.0, I guess. Which 8th edition fantasy was kind of like that. It was really, really lethal, I remember. Like you could stack magic effects to the point where people would just explode. And then like you could get attacks into the right angle where it would just like wipe entire units. I remember that being very you would like line up and then you would position and then someone would like boss a huge charge and then the game would like collapse, basically, is how that usually went for me. That was the first time that they introduced random charges into a GW game, and I think that was like the start of the downhill trend with their combat mechanics, because 8th edition or 7th edition's combat mechanics were like really tight, but on the flip side it was also a no pre-measurement game, and so it was all about guesstimating distances, and if you fucked up, you lost, which was not... It is a skill, but it's not an interesting skill. So Fantasy never hit 9th edition. Fantasy ended at 8th and went to AOS. They had like they did their end times like cycle, which was like a bunch of campaign books that had new stats. So it probably felt like a new edition, but to my knowledge, that was all 8th edition. Feels bad when your models run off the board. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I played a game of 8th edition where I had it was the top of the first turn, and I had my generals unit towards the edge of the board, which you had to because like the units were like 6 inches deep, and you had a 12-inch deployment zone. So like I don't know where you're supposed to put them, and then. A Plague Claw catapult from Skaven deviated one template and touched one of the units in his unit and killed them. And whenever that happened, you had to take a panic check. And so my general's unit just ran off the board on turn 1. I was like, I had not made a game action yet. I had deployed my army, and it was like, your general's dead. And I was like, fun, cool, man. This is a great time. It was very stupid. I remember that being very clearly like one of those like eye roll moments where you're like, okay, game, this is how we're playing it. All right. Yeah, I think it was 8th. 8th was interesting. 8th had a lot of like interesting mechanics in it, but I think that 7th edition fantasy was like really, really tight. Like between to my knowledge, between fifth and seventh edition, they basically didn't change the fantasy core rules. They re-released them every 4 years or so, but they didn't really change anything. They just tightened, and this is what Games Workshop used to do. This is when Games Workshop, before Games Workshop realized how much money they could make off new editions of games. They used to just use them as instances to improve their rule set. Wild, pretty interesting. A very interesting design ethos, Games Workshop. Maybe we should go back to that. So you stop rewriting the line of sight rules for no reason, so you break them every time. But between 5th and 7th edition, the rules were very, very similar. And then 8th edition, I think, was that first like big push where they were like, yo, if we like push this super hard and release a bunch of new shit and like rewrite a bunch of the rules, like people will be forced to buy an expensive rulebook, and the rulebooks were crazy expensive back then because there were these huge hardcovers, and people will be incentivized to buy all the new models. So like we'll make it a big thing, and that's when I first remember like the new editions being like, whoa, big edition, oh that's crazy. But before that, changes in editions were like you could count on one hand how many things changed. It was like a core rule that nobody liked, and they were like, we fixed it. And you're like, sick, thanks. Found random charges more interesting than charges double your move. I mean, it definitely like it opened up more variants, but it's whether or not you like variants, I guess. Like I don't know. Like sometimes you would just be in a situation where you're like, well, I'm gonna boss a 9er here because like I'm not, my opponent's like outmaneuvered me, so I'm just gonna like roll a hard 9. I remember. There's a little theme in our community of this YouTuber Vol SC, who I think started doing StarCraft commentary and then moved to Warhammer and then moved to Infinity. He's an Infinity YouTuber now. But he used to have, and he did War Machine for a really long time, which is how I found him. So he's StarCraft into War Machine into Warhammer Fantasy or the other way around, Warhammer Fantasy into War Machine, whatever, it doesn't matter. But he released a very early 8th edition battle report where he was like, all right, well, I had nothing to lose, so I attempted a 12-inch charge to my opponent's general, and I made it, and he died. And then the game was over. And he was like, I think this might be my last game of Warhammer Fantasy. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, you just like, I don't know. You would just like hold out until like you made a big charge, and then the game would fall apart. That was almost how every game in 8th edition I played was. It was like this really tight game of positioning and tight maneuvering, and then somebody would be like, I rolled an 8, and you're like, all right, well, that sucks. I guess I'll die now. But I don't know. Is AOS any fun? I assume so. A lot of people like it and seem to enjoy it, so I would assume that it's fun. Seems like people have a good time with it. It does. AOS, I think, is like, I don't know. It's interesting because it seems to me like it's more combat oriented, like 40k ish, which seems kind of cool. It's like it's more maneuver like oriented 40k, is how it feels on the table. The all the stuff with double turning still like kind of grinds my gears, and I don't know if I'm like mechanically interested in the game, but. I don't know. If they ever released an AOS edition where they were like, hey guys, we got rid of double turn, I'd be like, maybe time to play AOS. Maybe I'm an AOS YouTuber now. I don't know. But I've played a single game of AOS and the double turn was like so insane. I was like, this is really not a good mechanic and it's not fun to play with. Yeah, good except for the double turns, exactly. Yeah. And I understand it would be a fundamental change to like how the game is played, but as someone who has a great distaste of high variance gameplay, it's not something I'm interested in. I like it when games are more deterministic. I don't think games should ever be true, like fully deterministic. Then you might as well just play chess. But I like that. I like it when games are more deterministic than not. I think that's more fun.
That's more fun for me. Anyway, chat. Do we want to talk about anything else? This has been a fun discussion about old editions of stuff. I do like reminiscing. I'm a big fan of that. We do have some other lists that we could jump into if we were interested in, or we could keep talking shit about people. I don't know. Have I ever played Malifaux? No. I have some good friends who are I would say into it to the extent that they are some of the top Malifaux players and content creators. But I myself have never played it. There's a thing with Malifaux. Excuse me, chat. My voice is going. I might have to cut out here in a little bit. It's getting brutal. It's been unfortunate because I have a bunch of content I need to record, but like it's so difficult to do right now because of my throat. I'm just like, and I'm ending up doing like sort of like random upkeep things. First of all, the Malifaux website fucking sucks. Can we talk about that momentarily? It's impossible to find where anything is. This is the Malifaux website. Where are the models at? You click on this, and then it gives you like the art, but it's like they're ashamed of their models. And I know like for a minute, related product. It's just a picture. It's just a Squarespace hosted picture. So I guess you have to go to the web store to find their models. It's kind of a mess. I don't know. It's very difficult to get into. But here's my problem with Malifaux. Is that if we click on any faction, right? Let's click on... It's a good example. Neverborn. Which are, I think, like demon-y kind of stuff. And then we click on like any two models, right? Here's this character set and I don't know, something random. The Euripides core set. And then we click on the models, which we can't because this one doesn't have any. Okay. Great. So if we look at these two things on side by side, there's a thing that I love in miniature games, and it's one of my favorite things about miniature games, and it's consistent aesthetics across factions. But if we look at these two packets, right? This picture's really small. I don't know. Oh, there we go. We've made it big. So we have on one hand, some sort of mutant guys with spikes. And then in the same faction are these like Victorian like play actors. Like where's the through line? You know what I mean? And anytime you would look at a Malifaux team, that would be the problem, right? We have these guys and these guys. These guys are like gunslinger guys. These guys are in the same team, and it's a spooky tree and a fairy. Like what's the connection? You know what I mean? And none of those would ever, like, basically no Malifaux team ever looks consistent. And so from an outside perspective, somebody who doesn't know the range, and I imagine even as somebody who's new to the game, because Malifaux, it used to have a rule where, and I think they got rid of this, but Malifaux used to have a rule where lists were built at the table. And so a lot of times, like, you would have to own everything in a faction. I don't believe that that's the case anymore. I think that they have locks or more condensed like list rosters. But that was back in like first edition. That's how it worked. But like looking at what my opponent had, I would have no fucking idea what faction they were playing, because like everything was just a different, like just a guy. Like every model was like a totally unique, independent little guy. And so it's like playing a hero shooter or something where like nobody had any sort of internal consistency. And as a skirmish game, like you can get away with that. But like at least, you know, even like looking at Infinity or something, which is the same scale and the same unit, like model count. Infinity did a lot to like try to enmesh their units throughout within a faction with like very similar things, with very similar aesthetics. I think as that range has expanded, it's probably drifted a little bit. But Malifaux basically didn't start that way. Malifaux started with every single model being like totally unique. And that gives you like a lot of interesting individual models, but it doesn't make you give you a lot of interesting looking teams when you put them together. And so there are a couple factions in the game that are consistent. I don't want to say that's every single one, but I would say for the most part, Malifaux, when you look at it on the table, there's no aesthetic through line to any of the teams you're looking. And so that like turned me off like almost immediately. I was also when it first it was like getting big, and it's a first or second edition, I think. I remember thinking like it uses a card mechanic, which I wasn't into because I was so used to calculating dice probabilities that I wasn't really interested in learning a new like variance mechanic. But having thought about it in the past, I actually think the card mechanic's really cool because it actually locks in your level of variance. Whereas like with a dice roll, when you roll a dice roll, it could be anything, right? It could be literally any result every time you roll. And you can do gambler's fallacy stuff where you're like, well, I've averaged like a 4 on 2d6 this game. Like I'm due a 7 or whatever. But like that's not really how it works. The chances that you roll a 7 and you roll a 4 are basically the same as they would be normally, regardless of all your previous luck. But the card deck obviously gets rid of that, which I think is actually super cool. And then there's like card manipulation mechanics, and some factions use it as their faction ability. I think mechanically it's very interesting. I think it's maybe a little complex. It feels to me like Malifaux games take a really long time for a low model count, which because I think individually each model is complex. But I think that the mechanic, like the core variant mechanics of the game is really interesting. I think I just don't like it aesthetically is my biggest problem. That's a really long way of saying, no, I have not played Malifaux. Battle models in Infinity killed enthusiasm. Yeah, Infinity is like kind of OG. Infinity, I actually don't know when first edition Infinity came out. I wonder that would actually be interesting to know. Can I look it up? Infinity first edition. Nope. It turns out if you look up Infinity, a lot of things are called Infinity. Let's say Infinity the game. I'm interested to know when it first released. 2005. Yeah, so Infinity's pushing 20 years now. And in 2005, metal models were all you could do, right? So like it makes sense that it would be that sort of venerable. 20 years Infinity. Fuck me. That's crazy. But also like you have so few models per team that like I don't know if it's the end of the world, right? I do understand that like metal models are maybe not as exciting, although they are robust. So I have my Infinity team in a box over there, and they've been through like 2 moves and have gotten stuff put on them, and they're still kicking because they're old school pewter. Don't make them like they used to. Hard time with the Infinity website. Yeah, I don't know why. Oh, I just looked. It's literally what I just looked up. It's infinityofthegame.com. Okay. Apparently I'm having a problem in finding the Infinity website. What is Oh, infinityuniverse.com is the way. It used to be Infinity the game. What, they lose it? Please don't cookie me. Their website's gorgeous, but it's definitely it's so funny because like I don't know why miniature games. It's probably because it's a combination of a requirement that miniature games front load so much information, right? It's like like a miniature game like Infinity is not just a game. It's not like a board game where you can be like, hey, this is Monopoly. Here's a brief overview of play. Would you like to buy this game? It's an entire experience, right? It is a visual aesthetic. It is a universe. It is a narrative, and it's a game, and it's a line of miniatures. And a miniature line has so many SKUs in it It's really big, especially Infinity, which has a fucking million models. It's just like, it's so much shit, dude. Turns out 20 years of releases, that's a lot of shit. And so you can't easily represent these 382 products that we want to be selling you. And in the same like instance that we also showcase all of the other things that go into a miniature game. And I think that goes like that sort of breadth of information transfer that has to happen in order for a miniature game to be legible for someone who's just getting into it. You sort of need to, the website kind of has to suck. This is what I'm trying to say. So like, you know, here's like all the information. Here's all the factions. Here's all the artwork. Now, like, here's the community stuff. Like, also here's a blog or whatever. And then like you have to find a place to put a web store on there somewhere. And I think that's why like Warhammer also has this problem. Like we just talked about the Malifaux website and the Infinity website. Like they all do. They all have this issue. But man, god damn, are these models cool. Infinity, I think probably has stood the test of time as being like the coolest fucking game. There's like some parts of it. There's some parts of Infinity that I don't like. I don't like hidden information, which Infinity is like big into. It's also kind of it's like built around like gotcha mechanics in a big way, which I super don't love. I remember very distinctly whoever the Infinity guy's name is. I don't know his name. I see him at every convention, but I don't know what his name is. But I watched when I was like thinking about getting into it like years and years ago, like 10 years ago, and I was watching a battle report on Beasts of War. Who remembers Beasts of War? Now on tabletop. But they used to be this like basically these like miniature game tabletop gaming hype men, and their whole deal. We had a video on Beasts of War for Breachstorm. We ran a whole thing with them when we first launched our Kickstarter. They basically, their whole deal is that they do like battle reports, and they talk about and they showcase like new games, and usually like you pay them for advertising on their website, and then they'll do like content about you. And that's rad. And so they used to have this thing. They used to have a business partnership with Infinity. And I don't know if they still do this, but they used to have Infinity Week once a year. And they would do a bunch of Infinity content over the course of the week. And at one point, the lead designer of Infinity, whose name is something, and I don't remember his name, but he's in all their content. They made a short film, and he like started it at one point. I remember it was like very Tommy Wiseau. I loved it. It was I liked it so much. But he was playing his Infinity. He was playing his game on a YouTube channel meant to showcase his game. And he moves a model, and then he completes his movement, and he like moves on to start doing something else. And his opponent goes, "Oh, I could have this." The core mechanic of Infinity is called automatic reaction orders, AROs. For those who don't know, and it's a triggered reaction that you can do when someone else does something in your line of sight. So the idea is that Infinity, it plays usually only 3 turns, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's because everyone can act all the time. The catch line for a long time was it's always your turn, because you can always react to what your opponent's doing. And his opponent said, "Oh, hey, I could take an arrow attack at that guy because he crossed this street that I could have line of sight." And it was like true line of sight shit. And it was like, you take the laser pointer out. Can you see through this girder to fucking see this guy or whatever? And the lead designer of this game, who's playing a casual game on a YouTube channel designed to showcase his game, goes, "Oh no, man, you can't do that. You needed to have declared that when I made the movement. So unfortunately, like the timing's not like it's like too late now. So that sucks." And his opponent was like, "Oh, and it's like his YouTube channel, and he's like, trying to play it off like it's cool, but like the dude just like snapped at him, like, "Oh no, you can't do that. No, I'm not gonna give you this take back or whatever." And the guy who's like recording the battle report, whose like YouTube channel it is, it's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's on me. I should have like looked at the line of sight like when you did the move or something." And it was like 30 seconds ago, right? It wasn't like 5 minutes later, we like realized I could do this thing. It was like almost immediate. But like, oh no, you need to say it when I make the movement. And I was like, what the fuck is this game, dude? Is this wargaming for like degenerate Magic players who are like, miss trigger, oh, you can't do it now. And I was like, it just rubbed me the wrong way so bad that I actually kind of had a sour taste in my mouth about Infinity. Goes to show you that like performance on a live stream or whatever, if you are in a position where you're the head of the company making this game and trying to promote the game, I think it showcases a lot of the culture of the game, your behavior. So if you're ever in that position, I guess be careful of what you do. But it was weird, man. It was a weird interaction. And that always kind of like encapsulated Infinity for me. I did play Infinity for like 6 months or so, but the hidden information usually worked in my favor, but I always felt bad about it. I think like sort of apocryphally, my final game of Infinity ever, I had a unit with thermal optical camo. So you didn't set him up on the table. Instead, you noted where he was. So we would like place the models and then take a picture, like, and your opponent would turn around or whatever. And that's where they're invisible. That's where they are. So if somebody would move into that space, you'd have to reveal them or something. But they could still take AROs as if they were there. And so my opponent moved into this tower with a whole fire team of guys. It's like half his team, half his squad. And my guy's like, oh, I guess I'll ARO, and I have a rocket launcher. So I'll shoot like this high explosive missile into the tower your guys are in, critted the hit, and killed his entire team in one go. And there was no counterplay. There's no reason that like he didn't know I was there. The hit lists were hidden at the start of the game. So he didn't know I had this guy who could do this. He just had literally no information, and I got fucked for it. And I was like, this is not that interesting of a game. I don't know. I think Infinity looks really cool, and obviously its art style is like very distinct. But man, it's like a game designed for tryhards. I don't know. That's my story about Infinity, chat. Infinity website looks like an arena shooter. Well, they like literally have an arena game. Stop it. They have an arena shooter board game called Aristea. And I think the interesting thing and probably the biggest draw of Infinity is that it incentivizes you to play the most densely, like the highest terrain density possible, which means that unfortunately, and I think it came out at a good time where I think that was an okay selling point, because the industry was so much less saturated. But like nowadays, you come out with this game and literally no one would buy it because like it's too much. But it means that the tables that you play on are always really cool because they're huge and they're highly detailed and like because like it's all about individual like combat activations and stuff. Like things like, oh, I hid behind a planter like matter quite a bit. So like fleshing out the table matters a lot. And the tables look gorgeous. And the cool thing about this, like their little arena shooter game, is that if I don't know 100%, but I believe that it's an in-universe like sports game. And so we were walking through the tables at Adepticon, and one of the competitive Infinity tables that they had to play, Infinity the game, like the miniature game, had an Aristea board built into it because you were like fighting around this big stadium. So it was a big stadium with stadium seating, and then an Aristea board with all the Aristea terrain in it. And then like outside was like the parking lot of the stadium. I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. This is so sick. It definitely, I don't know. It like meshed the two games together in a really interesting way. I really like that. So you could play their shooter game on that, or you could play Infinity. So I don't know. The fact that it does look like an arena shooter does kind of make sense. I wish I could navigate off of this website now. It's too fast. I'm gonna have a seizure. Hire some likable, funny dupes to showcase your game for you. Yeah, and that was like the funny part was like about that battle report was like that was basically that was basically what it was, right? Like the guys, like their job was they were communications guys, and their job was to showcase new games and to promote them. And then like you bring the designer on who can add interesting commentary, but the dude is like very clearly like not media trained or whatever. And it's like, oh boy. He's like playing this very casual showcase game like very competitively. It was weird. It was a weird situation. I don't know. I sometimes wonder if I could go back and find that battle report and like find that moment, because I would say like it was kind of an important moment for me to be like, this is how you shouldn't play miniature games. Like don't have this interaction. Like even in a casual game, right? I rules Lord Guillermo del Toro on Breachstorm. I wish, dude. Man, I wish I got to meet Guillermo del Toro. The guy's such a legend. 40k's secondary system is listed for Malifaux? I don't think that's the case. The secondary system is a knock-on from the ITC system, and that could have been taken from Malifaux, but Malifaux has like a different way to do it. Malifaux does use like selected missions at the start, but they're secret, and they oftentimes will revolve around your interacting with other people's models, which I don't like. 40k doesn't do quite as much. I think that's more convergent evolution than a direct rip, I would say. I think. When will GWK to modernity give alternating activations? Yeah, not in 40k, hopefully. We talk about it a lot, but like I think people think that they want alternating activations in 40k, but I don't think they actually do. Alternating activations don't work in a game the scale of 40k. It's too big. There's too many units. There's too many models. There's like too much going on. And alternating activations, basically on their own, if you take any game system and you just add alternating activations to it, you basically double its playtime, or at least 50% increase. Because alternating activations are so much more mechanically and like strategically complex that it just takes longer to resolve them, and it takes longer to plan through your turns. And so you're talking about 40k, which is a game that has like sometimes 200 models on the table. And then you want to, that on a good day takes 3 hours, and you want to add alternating activations to that? Boy, that's going to be rough. They could do it if they did it in like a limited format where you alternated like bricks of units. Or I think more realistically, if you wanted to do like kind of an alternating thing, you would lift from like the Lord of the Rings system, and you would do like combined phases where both players like move in the same phase or something, and then shoot in the same phase. I think that would be interesting. But you would really need to like you would probably have to shave down the model count quite a bit for alternating activation to work without super dumbing down the game to the point where it's like not even that interesting anymore. That's how I think they feel about it. Doing a teaching game once, you and your learner, you wrapped a land raider, killed a warlord and its retinue. The guys did not end up learning the game. Wait, you and your learner versus your practice buddy and a learner. Oh, so like you played a 2v2, and then the guy who's your practice partner, like super hardcore, like try-harded. What the fuck? That's not how you teach people games. I feel like I should make a tutorial on how to like just like basic bitch how to teach people a fucking game. As somebody who has probably run like, I don't know, thousands of demo games. I think it's almost certainly a 4-digit number of demo games in my life. Super not how you do it. That is really rough. Yeah. Like what's interesting is like if you were playing against a learner and you coached them through that, that's a good teaching example. Because if you can showcase an interesting thing you can do once you like unlock the mechanics, that gets people engaged. But when you just like do it for them, It's not interesting or fun. Or even less so when you do it to them. That's super enough. Look at this cool thing I'm about to do to you so that you don't have any fun playing this fucking game. You know, buddy, currently using the TTS videos to learn 40k? Fuck yeah, dude. Hope you're having a good time with it. I hope the videos are useful. Yeah. Especially if you're like, you're teaching somebody the game and you're like, I'm gonna push forward and we're gonna have a big fight, a big battle in the middle. Let's go. And then they're like, I'll punish you. And you're like, no. Don't do the punish. Just have the battle. It's supposed to be a big cinematic fight. I feel like you should probably be. I mean, I don't know when this happened, obviously, but I think at this stage you should be teaching people in combat patrol for 40k. It's like so much simpler and less rules bloat. And I think that system it's not a good system, but it is legitimately good for learning like the core mechanics before you play a real game. Don't get why people get so into it if it's not a tournament game. Yeah, sometimes they feel like their ego's on the line. Like, I understand it. As someone who's like, I definitely have like taken casual games too seriously in the past. Because like to some extent, and I find it less so on Tabletop Simulator. Like if I just died of random bullshit on Tabletop Simulator, I'd be like, yeah, it sucks. If it's like a competitive game, I'll complain about it or whatever. But like, there's nothing you can do for the most part. For a while it was like playing in an LGS is a little bit tough because you always played in this really tight group of people, and so I felt like that almost like exacerbates the I don't know, the pressure a little bit. Especially if you're someone who's like who's like generally has a positive win rate. You get to the point where people will be like, oh, I beat that guy. Oh, I'm so good. Let's fucking go. And then they like talk about it for the next 6 months. And so like, even if you're playing a casual game and you're like, oh, if I lose this game, I'm gonna have to hear about it every week for the next year. And like, I don't know. It adds more pressure. It feels like that's how I felt like kind of playing in game stores like in the before 4 times. It was always like, if I was typically somebody who would win like 90% of their games. And so like in the instance where I would like lose, people would be like, oh, I got you, get fucked. I would be like, well, that doesn't feel good. So I don't know. I felt much more pressured to like be a weird tryhard. I don't think I would have the same experience now. I'm like much better about losing now. But yeah. Index Hammer at the start of 8th edition. Oh man, that's 8 million years ago. Hot damn. That's a New England meta thing? Yeah, maybe. I think once the level of competition, and part of it too is like playing in an RGS, it's like a really limited group of people. And like that's like basically the entire community. And so it's also like a limited skill pool. Now that I imagine like the competitive scene has gotten so much more skilled. There's more resources out there to get better. Like Tabletop Simulator is a huge like skill. It's a really big way to improve skill. I feel like the average level of play in I would say 40k for sure, but probably most miniature games has dramatically improved. And so it doesn't like random, you could play some rando dude and he could just beat you because he's good, because he studied YouTube tutorials and stuff. And I think that's like totally reasonable. Whereas in the past, it was like all learned stuff. You should take pride in being a guy who loses from boxcard charges. Yeah. If my opponent's literally only game plan is to like roll 10s on charges, like I mean, fair enough, I guess. Hate the game, not the player, right? Why are we playing a game with random charges in 2025? Is the real question. Except left in your store, there was a anti-competitive sentiment for years. People saying that they're not playing competitive, but they have the hardest army they can find without named characters or Forge World. Yeah, yeah. There was a little bit of that. I remember playing a guy. This is right as I was getting introduced to 40k. It's another thing where like sometimes the community is just like really toxic to itself. I played this guy. He was actually like really racist, which I found out at some point playing a game with him. And then he I don't know. He said some really racist stuff, and I never saw him again. I think he might have gotten kicked out of the game store. But it was just like one of those like hyper cringe lords. But I remember playing this guy, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, do you want to play with ITC rules?" And he was like, "No, fuck that. Never. I'll never play tournament rules." And I was like, "All right, cool, man. Whatever, dude." And one of the ITC rules was that the L terrain that everyone played with, they called Nova Ls because Nova Open started using them in 8th edition. Where you'd put two big, like 12 by 12 bricks in the middle of the table, and they'd have a big L wall on them. So you could actually hide from shit. Because everything was true line of sight in 8th edition. It was a nightmare. Everything sucked. In the terrain format rules for ITC, there was a rule, and for Nova, there was a rule that you couldn't stand on top of the Nova Ls. They were essentially considered to be like infinitely tall. Models could not go on top of them. You could fly over them. You could breach through them. You couldn't stand on top of them. This guy goes, "Fuck you. I don't want to play ITC rules. I don't want to play any of that tournament shit." And then he takes a Havoc unit. I'm playing Tyranids with like no guns because I was just starting. It was like my 5th game or something. And I had Gene Stealers and Hive Tyrants. Like that was it. And he takes a Havoc unit and he puts it on top of the fucking Nova L. He like infiltrates it because he's playing Night Lords or some shit. I don't remember. Through some contrivance, he infiltrates Las Cannon Havocs onto the top of this 12-inch tall building where I literally have no way to interact with them. I was like, cool, man. That's like perfectly within your prerogative to do. I feel like this has been a setup, like to some extent, you know, I don't want to play with with ITC rules because they say I can't go on the top of the building. And so now in a context where I'm not playing competitively, I'm going to do the most like competitively try hard thing I can. Knowing that I like the rule that explicitly prevents me from doing this to be uninteractive is not being used in this game. I was like, all right, dude. Like I see how it is. Sure, man. Whatever you need to do to feel good. It was like a super duper dick move. I killed literally everything else in his army and then won on scenario, but got shot by 4 las cannons every turn. But I was like, that was really mean. It was just like not a very like interesting or nice play for you to have made. I don't like you very much. It was very stupid. Oh man, fucking so dumb, dude. Used to be some cringe players at Relentless Dragon. I don't know if I ever went to Relentless Dragon. Battlegrounds was the main LGS. Battlegrounds is great. That was when that game happened at Battlegrounds though, so I don't know. Battlegrounds wasn't all great. It ended up being I liked Battlegrounds had good like league play. I enjoyed playing their leagues, but that ended up being I don't know, kind of funny. I did play a guy who when the 9th edition Tyranid Codex came out, and there was like weird stuff because they misprinted like a bunch of strats, and I tried to use Overrun, which was like very clear what the intent was. It was at the end of your, it was like used at the fight phase and then triggered in a different phase, and like the way that the triggers had been layered were like in the stratagem, like technically meant it didn't work. And we were playing like this league game it was just for league points or whatever. And I like go and I play this whole turn, and then I go to use Overrun. And my opponent's like, "Oh, that strat doesn't do anything." I was like, yeah, I mean technically, but like, are you really gonna pull that on me in this like friendly league game? For bragging rights? And he's like, well, yeah, but the league organizer there was like, no, you can use your stratagem. I was like, why? Thank you. Wow, thank you so much. It was very weird. I don't know. There was like one dude at that store who was like very weird about it. And then he would go to events and he would lose, and he would be really upset about it. The audacity. If it was a tournament game, I would have asked the TO beforehand. But I didn't even think it was that big of a deal because it was like a super non-tournament game. He was playing 9th edition Eldar too. It was like fucking like you know, Hail of Doom bullshit. Like, all right, man. Like the most like a little cookie cutter try hard army. I was like, oh, okay. Fucking jerk. So stupid. I don't like playing Warhammer competitively. What's competitive? You playing within the rules of the game system? Yeah, that's a big one for sure. Yeah, we'll talk about it once I have my voice back, and I'll feel better about recording videos. Will definitely. I'm about to not speak for the next 24 hours. By the way, the stream's gonna kill me. We'll probably talk about some of the interesting responses to that combat slingshot video, because it is interesting how people just like refuse. Like, there's a difference between, I think, playing between like there's competitive play in that the game is competitive, like in that it's for like you're playing for a prize or something, right? That's in by definition competitive. And there's competitive play where it's like you are. Then there's like, I guess, like overly competitive play. There's like play to win, which is that like you're very like obnoxious about the rules. And then there's just like playing the rules. And I think like anything that is allowed by the rules, I think like it should be fine, right? If I do like a fancy combat move on you, it doesn't matter what arena we're playing in. You should be like, hey, that's cool. Cool combat maneuver. But the fact that so many people want to just like discount sections of the rules they don't like if they're not playing quote unquote competitive is like super bizarre to me. It's just like it's an ethos I don't understand. And I think I know why Warhammer has it as like a cultural kind of like throwback. But I don't think it's the case in any other game. If you play any other tabletop game and somebody like uses a mechanic to their advantage, you like, I don't think that there's a stigma against that in anywhere else. But in Warhammer there is. And I think it's because like a lot of the roots of the game are like very role-playing sort of centric, and you're supposed to be like forging a narrative. But that's not where the game's at now. That's like, as we've just talked about, the people playing at their LGS are like being like try-hard douchebags. And so like, you know, they're going to use that role. Like, I think the people who play Warhammer to be this like hyper narrative, like hyper like role-playing experience are so in the minority at this point that it just shocks me every time they come out of the woodwork. It's like wild. Hail of Doom was smooth brain, yeah. So it was, the part that always got me was like, it was Hail of Doom and you got Fate Dice. There's two things. So it was like, I'll shoot my last cannon, my bright lance at you, and like auto 6 damage. So like max kills kill somebody every turn. Oh, okay, cool, man. Or because they had like it was if you had the Fate Dice in the pool, but then you could have like Eldrad who could switch dice in the pool into your Fate Dice pool or whatever. There was a bunch of mechanics that you could change the facing of the dice, so you could use them to auto 6 different dice rolls. But then on top of that, you also had just like this insane detachment ability that was fucking wild. so brutal, dude. Ugh. Longship lost the game in the first turn after getting all your stuff out once. Null deployed in 4th edition against Eldar jet bikes. They screened out the edges and your army died in reserve. In like a casual game, your opponent's just like, hey man, don't do that. You're like, what does anybody learn from that? I don't know. Actually, I used to kind of do that in like practice games. I was very good at War Machine back in the day, and War Machine, and I do feel bad about this, like thinking back on it, but War Machine had a great outlet for somebody if you didn't want to play them, and you killed their caster, then the game was just over. So like, it gave you this outlet for like, if you ever wanted to just be like not be in the game anymore, you could just be like, I'm gonna try to win right now, and if I lose, then you'll kill me. And so there were some games I remember very specifically where it's like I could be either like playing somebody like better, or I could be like doing something more interesting with my time. And so I would just like kill the person immediately. And I felt really bad because like in hindsight, what I should be doing is like trying to trying to like walk them through it and be like, hey man, here's how you should position to block this. But then like that's gonna take extra time, and then the game's gonna go for a really long time, and I'm gonna have to keep giving them advice or whatever. I was like, oh, I don't have the energy. I just want to go home, or I just want to go like play another game, or like my friend just walked in, I want to go like hang out with them. So I would just kill the person. I did that a couple times to people. I feel really bad now thinking back on it, but I was like, and that's like kind of the same deal. It's like you're playing a casual game, and you're just like, I can auto win here. I guess I'll do that. And you're like, oh, all right. I mean, I guess so. You do win the game, but like nobody's learned anything. But I mean, I guess you probably didn't do that again. So there you go. Oh, he told you he would beat you and you didn't believe him? Oh, okay. Well, that's on you. Sometimes you hit the people who are like, you're like, hey, you shouldn't do that because of X. And they're like, oh, I'm going to try it anyway and see how it goes. I'm like, I guarantee you it's not going to go well, but you do you, fam. So silly. This is insane. People just don't want to admit they're bad at 40k. I mean, maybe that's the case. But it's like, is it bad to like not know a mechanic, right? I don't know. Or I guess it's that they don't. Maybe that is like that is kind of it. It's like that they want to like handicap themselves so that they think they have some like sort of like weird moral high ground. Oh, I don't use that rule, so I'm better at 40k. But like really, you're just not playing the same game. You're playing a slightly more difficult game for yourself. At least XR customization, yeah. I like that XRs are back to being like really powerful and cool, but like, it is definitely a big loss for sure. XR power is really sweet. 1.1 inches from the wall. Yeah, that's another one. People would be like, "Oh, I don't do that. You should be able to charge me." I'm like, why? That one always kind of like threw me for a loop because the people who would be like, well, it doesn't make sense that you wouldn't be able to attack me. Like, even though we're in, like, it's the same people who say we want to play like, a thematic game. Also, be like, oh, the 1.1 inch from a wall thing is really like is lame and stupid. Like, some like there is an argument that like WTC uses, right, where they're like it's uninteractive, and I guess like that is, to be fair, you're not wrong. You know what else is uninteractive WTC is putting all of your ruins like 4 inches away from each other, so you can't move 130 mil. But you know what? You do you. And also disallowing like a bunch of data sheets in the game from being played for no reason. I don't know. Neither here nor there. We're spicy today, apparently. I'm delirious and apparently just taking shots. But there's so many people who are like, I just want to play a thematic game where we set up our tiny toy soldiers and we play Warhammer 40,000. Then you tell them about the 1.1 inch thing and they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. My model should be able to charge you. And you're like, well, it's a defended structure. My guys are taking a defending position in a building. Of course they're going to like barricade it so you can't come in. Like, from a thematic standpoint, that interaction makes total sense. Of course I would fortify my like defended emplacement. What are you talking about? Like, of course I would try to hold the door shut. Of course I would try to stop your guys from just busting through the wall. Also, why does it make sense that you can fight me through a wall anyway? How can you swing your chainsword through like a steel barrier, And so like it's the people, I don't know. It's very funny when those people, like those two people exist on the same plane. And they hold like the two opinions. It's like a 1984 doublethink, right? They hold the same opinions at the same time. The one thing where I should be able to charge your unit and phase into a wall and then fight you while halfway inside the wall. And then the other key, and then at the same time being like, I want to play a thematic game of 40k. What? NC Conroy, what's up, my guy? How's it going? Nice to see you. We're taking shots at game systems right now, apparently. We've just been doing this for like an hour. We talked about
We talked about Tyranids for like an hour, and now we're just talking about random other game systems. Because, I don't know. That's just where we're at. That's where my life's at, apparently. And also my throat hurts and I want to get off soon. Be cool if there's a rule you can fight 2 inches through a wall after a charge, but you don't gain fights first. Oh, that is a good rule. That actually used to be the rule. If you are inside a terrain feature in 4th through 5th edition, if you're inside a terrain feature and somebody charged you, you gained initiative 10. However, if they had assault grenades, which is what grenades used to do, then you fought a normal initiative. Cool, because you could throw a grenade and they would have to keep their head down, and then you could charge them. I thought that was neat. I thought that was a cool little interaction. You got rid of all that shit, though. Now, a grenade is something that half of the armies in the game have access to and does 4 mortal wounds. Played versus a tile player. Versus tile. The player plays terrain in open first floor windows. Oh, bro. Yeah. Dude, the fucking player plays terrain is... I understand why people want it, but it's just so not conducive to 40k. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You need to have... I love player plays terrain in other games, but the game needs to be built around it. While we're talking about that, does anybody want to see my Breach Storm mod for Tabletop Simulator? I made a Breach Storm mod, chat. I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna show it off real quick because I'm proud of it. It's gonna be public in a little bit, I think. Speaking of player place terrain, and speaking of showcasing things that are cool about a game, trying to take other games down. Had someone tell you that you weren't allowed to use a certain model? And it's like the only list that yeah, the only list that you have. Yeah, that's like so silly. Like not allowed to use it like the model was outdated or something, or not allowed to use it like they didn't like it, so they didn't want you. Because that's like super pedantic and stupid. I hate that shit. Tyranids didn't have them, and screw melee G-Stars. They had, I think Tyranids had some amount of them. Tyranids used to have all sorts of weird shit. Like if you had, there was like some stuff. Like I think spine banks counted as grenades, and there was like a spore cloud upgrade for Carnifexes that counted as grenades. I think I don't remember. Like a bunch of the shit that's now just like a stupid gun in 10th edition used to just like give you a core roll. Like grenades or whatever. On the awful 5th edition. Oh, that's true. Yeah, the 5th edition codex is really bad. The first codex were Carnifexes were like dog shit trash. Just horrible pieces of trash. So bad. All right, look at my cool mod, chat. I spend lots of time on this. It has a board. So here's how this game works. When you show up to the army, when you show up to the game, all the miniatures are just standees right now. They're not that interesting, but they're getting better slowly. But when you show up to the game, you have a 12-inch deployment zone, and then you do player place terrain. All of the terrain can't be placed within 6 inches of the table edge, so there's a 6-inch exclusion zone. And it can't be placed within 2 inches of each other, so they all get this little 1-inch little zone around them. So you can place them, and you can do player placement like this, and that's how all the terrain is set up. And then, when you're done, you can turn them into terrain features, and then you play the whole thematic thing. Isn't that neat? Isn't that cool? So we kind of built the game from the ground up using player place terrain. And then finally found a way to implement it in Tabletop Simulator that wasn't super hard. And it's pretty neat. You can move through this. You can turn the trees on and off. I love trees, so I always keep the trees on. And the buildings are just like big obstructions, so you don't need to worry about like occupying them or moving up into second levels. So we can build the buildings out however you want when you build your terrain features.
which is pretty nifty. But that's speaking of player place terrain. That's how player place terrain works in this game, which is pretty cool. Once we have more like sort of mod support available, we have a list builder currently in progress. We're working with a developer to get our models imported. I think maybe before that, like right now everything's manual. It's all done through object states in Tabletop Simulator. But I'm working on updating the miniatures so that they measure more correctly and they look a little bit nicer. Once that's done, we'll be running some events in the Breachstorm Discord. But the I'd like to run some in the TacticalTortoise Discord as well for anybody who's interested in playing, just like some free learning events. But yeah, that's what's going on. You can just go around the sides. Yeah, I mean for sure. So like all the terrain gets pretty like you have to put it all inside this little square. The sides end up being so the thing that people would do, and the reason that it works this way, is that any terrain features that their faction didn't want to play with, so like forests, for example, block line of sight but don't impede movement, so they're good for like melee armies. So if you were playing a ranged faction, you would be like, I'll put the forest over here, and then you wouldn't have to deal with it. So in order to prevent that, all of the terrain has to be placed in like a meaningful position, which is within this little like 24-inch band in the middle. You can push around the sides, but the objectives are usually centrally located, and the objectives are all asymmetric in Breachstorm. So like both players have different objectives that they're trying to do, but you can see that they're all mostly oriented towards the middle. This is what they end up looking like. So it's like two little terminals you have to hack in the middle versus like one zone you have to get to. So going like all the way around the sides can be good to like approach an objective, but it's not necessarily like just a free run down the side. Usually it also forces you to push in. Feline chic. We do have a lot of that. We got a couple of those friends in here. Look at this guy. So new upgrade cards got added last month as well. We added some new content. Where's it at? Here it is. Look at this cool card art. Look how neat that is. Our digital artist is cool. How creative can you get with list building? Very creative. There are no list building restrictions other than you have unique units. So some like there are special characters and stuff that have the little brackets on their subtype. Those you can only include one of each of those subtypes. So you can't have multiple of this character, obviously. And you can't duplicate upgrade cards. But the list building's like super flexible. There are no other rules. If you just literally wanted to take one like unit a million times, you could just do that. It's usually really bad, but you could. You'll probably just get countered by somebody with a more well-optimized list, but it's super flexible. And then they have upgrade slots. There's 28 upgrade cards in the game right now, and you assign them to this upgrade card slots to customize them, and then those upgrades are one per faction or one per team. So you can't double up on any upgrades that are particularly strong, but you can like use them to build out like interesting combos. Don't know the rules, but medic seems good. It's okay. It's good for this little symbol, the little goggles, means that it's meant for a mode called Covert Ops. So anything next to that goggle symbol, that's our cooperative game mode. Anything next to that goggle symbol only works when you're playing cooperative play. So the field medic in cooperative play is really good because they can resuscitate your guys back to life. For competitive play, that doesn't work. So you only get this effect where you can, it's an action to heal people, which is like fine. But it's not like particularly transformative. Funnily enough, like this is probably the strongest upgrade we've released in a while. Because it lets you can basically like move farther and while interacting with objectives. But on the flip side, it's really expensive. Three cost is the highest cost upgrade in the game right now. There's only 2 of them. These MTG card bases? No. All of the assets are bespoke. These are I had worked with a graphic designer when we started the project who made all of the card art, the card formatting, and then we have a digital artist that does all of our digital artwork. Styrofoam 12, unrelated. Is there any 40k terrain packs that aren't exclusively GW? Yeah, you can find them. I think it's tough. It's a little tough to find. Like you can just look up tabletop simulator terrain like terrain packs. Some of them are like, there's some old ones. Let's see if I can find a couple. Some of them are broken because the ones that I have are from like 8th and 9th edition. We used to get really fancy with it in 8th edition. And honestly, you could maybe reuse some of these ones. The 8th edition packs we used to get really, really, really crazy with, or T5S2. Because we built them off WTC. And to be fair, terrain was more interesting in 9th edition. This is a 9th edition map. The table size is the same, and you might just have to like house roll some of the terrain features. But like these maps are still like probably fine, assuming all the assets still load in because they're a couple years old. You can also find some like really, really janky ones from like back in time. This is a Nurgly one. Here's a Nurgly one somebody made. This one's like a little bit more generic, I guess. There's like some really crazy ones in here. Oops. Especially 8th edition. 8th edition, like there was no terrain standard, so people just did like fucking weird shit. Here's one. It's just a city. Hopefully it loads. Oh, not looking good. Yeah, this is like 5 years old, so a bunch of the assets are probably broken because it hasn't been upkept. Like that's kind of fun, but these are all like ancient maps. These are not even designed for modern 40k. We used to get feisty. First season of 9th edition, we got really silly with maps for a while. Because like I just built on my own because there were no, the US Open hadn't come out with their own layouts yet, and WTC layouts were like still kind of hokey for a little bit. Oh yeah, this one's got some broken assets too. This one, I liked this one quite a bit. I built this one for hammer and anvil style deployments. It was really fun. Had this big fucking thing in the middle you had to maneuver around, which is like kind of bifurcated the game, which always made for interesting gameplay. And sometimes you would have people who would post up like buff guys here and then like push around the corners. Thought that was cool. I thought it was neat, chat. If you go to tts40k.com/maps, all of these old maps are still archived there. All of the old maps that I've made. So you can still find a bunch of them. Here's some old 8th edition ones. So if you look on the Steam Workshop, this is a long way of saying it. If you look on the Steam Workshop, you can find them. Oh, this one's fucked. This means that a bunch of shit's broken. Oh yeah, that's broken as hell. Oh boy, everything's broken. No. All right, well that one's a goner. Sorry, folks. The artist copied Magic the Gathering? How? What? It's not even close. In that it is a playing card with art at the top. Sure. But like Magic the Gathering card, like Magic the Gathering has title and mana costs at the top, and then type and subtype below the art, and we don't even have a top bar. It's like not even close. Magic uses AI art. Didn't they? They had like a big scandal. They apologized for AI art like a little while ago, right? They use AI stuff for like marketing, which I guess like to some extent, I like AI stuff. Like generative AI is like shitty, and you shouldn't use it. But to some extent, I think that's like the least problematic of all of it. Trying to get through these old TTS maps, and they're all fucking broken. Where's the Thousand Suns leaks? Dude, I'm with you. We've had a bunch of them, and I think they're being confirmed by more people the closer we get. But we'll probably start to see previews, because the end of the month is the timeline, so we'll probably see previews next week. This is, speaking of like old 8th edition maps, this is an OG one. It's like an orc base. I think it's missing some stuff, but I just thought this one was fun. They have like a factory. It's like building tanks. I love that. Our poor power lifter sentinel, our load lifter sentinel got blown up. Poor guy. He didn't deserve that. This would be so trash to play on. I think looking at it in the context of 8th edition, you just get shot off immediately. But that's okay. Yeah, I think he sent. I got so many fucking messages in the last like 24 hours just because of event stuff. I think a bunch of my messages got buried. Scuttlebutt is that Bjorn is in the Codex. Thunderwolf Cavalry are getting a new kit, but not getting any leaders. Good stuff for Space Wolves. Try them out. Yeah. Try them out. Some of the assets might be broken because from the older ones, because I don't upkeep them, so I don't replace assets that get dehosted. So just like fair warning that some of them might have broken stuff in them, but the most recent they are, the better. So going through like the last couple seasons of the 9th edition stuff is like probably pretty reasonable. Anyway, chat, I think that's it for me. This is probably longer than I should have talked, but we got in a funny tangent, so I very much enjoyed Tactical Tangent, where we just talked about tabletop games. I love talking about the miniature gaming industry. I think it's really interesting. So I like all that stuff. So thanks for dragging me on that tangent where we talked about funny like Horus Heresy stuff. I'm dying right now though, so I gotta hop off and rest my voice. But thanks everyone for chilling with me. Keep it classy, folks. If you're happy, we're gaming and all that stuff. And I might stream on Twitch this evening. The original plan was to stream on Twitch more this week, but speaking is just like tough right now. So I don't know if I will. So I don't know. Stay tuned, I guess. Otherwise, I'll see you later, everybody. Cheers, everybody.